Good evening, everybody. It's 6:30 on the West Coast, 9:30 on the East Coast. See, I mixed it up there. Must be time for your weekly Calamity Jane live stream. James, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. You sound very relaxed after your vacation. You sound like you're like kind of a radio disc jockey kind of host kind of a voice. Kind of
This is
going into
Casey
the
Kasem,
yeah. No, wow.
walking up the
Never mind.
charts back in
Never mind.
1955.
Never mind. You actually have one in your back pocket. Wow, that's crazy.
Was that okay?
Welcome back.
Yeah. Welcome back. Yeah, it was good. As I guess most of you know, I was in not Vancouver, Victoria for about 6 days visiting a friend up there. I love Victoria. I've been up there before, so when he moved up there, I made a point of visiting. Yeah, I mean, we just did. It's the Pacific Northwest, so you spend most of your time hiking. That's like the main hobby up in that region of the continent, I guess, because I was in Canada, not Seattle this time. But it's a very similar culture, very similar environment, ecosystem, that kind of stuff. So lots of hiking. Watched a bunch of movies, played a bunch of video games. Just yeah, it was just really chill, low key, low stress. It's exactly what I wanted. So it was a good time. Although it was a gauntlet to get to Victoria.
Hmm.
The plane
Yeah,
trip was insanity, but that's a story for another day. But yeah, I'm
yeah,
doing well. Not looking forward to going back to work tomorrow, but what can you do
yeah. That's pretty much anybody after vacation.
after vacation? Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
Hmm.
So how about you? How are you doing?
Oh, good. I remember 2 weeks ago when you before your vacation, I was ambitious and I wanted to do a stream last week. And what I wanted to do last week, it just didn't pan out. I was trying to experiment with some new 2D animation tools, but I want to get a little bit better with it,
Mm-hmm.
without having to swear at the screen that much more than
More than
um,
you usually do.
even more like yeah, more than I usually do. So I held off. So yes, so I apologize to our tens to twenties of viewers that I did not get on live and animate a little bit, but figured it's probably better than watching. It's already laborious as it is watching me kind of struggle with some stuff here and there, but to not know anything about a particular package I'm trying to work with and figure out how to do file save as, there's nothing exciting about seeing that without you and I going back and forth. So
Yeah.
I
Trying to
mixed it.
troubleshoot that in isolation is
Yeah.
not. It's not prime time television.
No, it's not. No. But as of tonight, though, with our when we were talking offline, you had a brilliant idea for for a costume change for Calamity Jane, and it just got me thinking about how I want to do that for the stream tonight. I know it's completely left field, has nothing to do with episode one, but I figured we were making pretty, like I've been animating on episode one now for a couple of weeks now. I was like, you know what? Let's take a break this week. You're back from your vacation. Let's just do something completely random. So why don't we just preface, like, why don't we set up this whole thing where
Yeah.
we,
So last weekend was a convention, an anime convention in Atlanta, and I took my niece to it because she just loves anime and has never been to a con before. So I took her to this. And we do tweets. You can find us on Twitter. We do weekly tweets, so definitely check that out. But so we were doing our tweets, and the thing that we're doing now with our tweets. Sorry, my dog was in my lap. Okay.
just
Um,
just to clarify what we do, we have our own. At least I have my own Twitter account, but for Calamity Jane, she has her
yeah,
own
she
Twitter
has her
account,
own. She has her own Twitter account. Yes,
and you and I, yes,
and she
yeah,
tweets every week.
yes,
And so we were talking about this, and we usually draw inspiration for our weekly Twitter story for Calamity Jane based on our conversation. So this came up, and so I was like, well, what if the story is she's going to a con? And check out Twitter for the whole story. I won't belabor the point.
yeah,
But I just threw out this idea that she was going to go as her favorite superhero, Wombat-Girl. And as you can see, James just still dining on it.
yeah. It's pretty
Uh,
funny.
and so, honestly, neither one of us actually knew what a wombat looked like.
Yes,
I just knew that
yes,
a wombat was a rodent of some sort. I didn't know anything beyond that. And so
yeah.
we looked it up, and yeah, so James is going to do her cosplay of Wombat Girl, Calamity Jane's cosplay of Wombat Girl
Yeah,
tonight.
it's I can't help it. I have to design this costume, Eric.
Yeah,
We're sitting on it, and
it's just
yeah, it's been
gold,
on my
James. It's gold,
mind.
James. It's gold.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen, and we'll kind of. I'm gonna start from the very beginning with this one.
Okay,
So
all right.
So here we are. We've got Calamity Jane in her standard classic pose, I guess at this point, her standard 3/4 pose. Let's go to Chrome real quick here, and we're looking at wombats.
There we go.
And
Just
I
look at
mean, if you're
the
gonna
third
pick,
one. The third image pretty much sums up everything you need to know about wombats.
yeah,
Just
yeah. So
horrendous looking creatures.
yes, I love it though. I think this is. I mean, Wombat Girl. It just makes me think about this the lore behind this character that
Oh yeah,
Calamity
sure.
idolizes. Aside from her uncle, of course, Uncle Leon. But I mean, this is something she reads in the comic books. I'm assuming. I don't know if you've had any. I don't know if you've thought about any more story behind it, but I'm imagining Calamity has a whole bunch of issues. With Wombat Girl that she has kind of stashed away, and she reads up on this character and follows her exploits and stuff like that. But oh my gosh, look how cute and hideous at the same
At the
time
same
this
time, I
guy.
mean, it's everything. Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I honestly haven't. Like I said, I just threw Wombat Girl out there, just sort of wordball style, which is an improv game for any of you nerds out there. And just wombat is what came to mind for some reason, and so that's what we're going with. And yeah,
It's awesome. I'm gonna grab a couple of images here,
okay.
and I'll start building out a couple of sketches here and there. Let's see here.
But while you're building that palette of reference, we've talked in the past episodes and the past episodes about the Mario versus Rabbids turn-based strategy game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we explained that I accidentally played the game in hard mode because I didn't notice the get extra health and recover all HP icon. And after discovering that, I went back and not only did I beat the game while I was in Victoria, but I also got the DLC. And just before our stream tonight, I beat the DLC as well. So I have
Wow. I mean,
gone
yeah.
through, yeah, and
I
just
didn't know. I didn't know you were like coming in hot and finishing the game that quickly. That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
yeah. It was crazy. Oh my god, that wombat is enormous. I didn't know
Yeah,
that they got
yeah,
so.
yeah. Look at
That's crazy. That's
that.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, I'm surprised. I've never heard of these. I mean, I've heard of the name Wombat. Yeah, like it's like with you. This is new to me too. I just never
Right. I
pictured
mean,
them
the
before.
word has existed in my brain,
Yeah,
right? But I've
yeah,
never bothered to look up what a wombat looks like. Um,
yeah. They're pretty trippy. Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty crazy.
just I'm just a
She's
little.
psyched.
Yeah, she's super psyched. Yeah. But yeah, so it was good. I enjoyed it once I stopped playing it on hard mode.
Yeah. So you kind of just breeze through the rest of the game pretty much after that.
Pretty much. I mean, there was a bit of a challenge, but again, as discussed, I don't know that the point really, the main point of that game isn't like beating you over the head trying to finish it. It's more just sort of relishing in the fun mechanics, right? Just
Mhm.
playing the game for the joy of playing the game because the focus is so much, and it's such a departure from most turn-based strategy games, but the focus is on maximizing movement around the environment and
Mhm.
finding clever ways to complete the maps in as few as turn as possible. It's almost like you're competing with yourself to a certain extent, right? The game isn't overly difficult, but it's really fun to try to find a way to maximize your turn, right? Like, and
Mhm.
so rather than spending all of your time worrying, am I going to survive this turn? It's more fun to go, how many bad guys can I kill in one turn?
In one turn.
Right.
Yes, because yeah, and you could. I mean, so I've only finished the base game. I haven't got the Donkey Kong DLC just yet. But you were telling me just how much more dynamic having Donkey Kong
Yeah, it's
the game is,
crazy. I
right?
mean, I want them to, and they're not because the new one's coming out apparently at the end of this year. Although that's been really quiet since they announced it. But
Mhm.
yeah, I wish that they would go back and add Donkey Kong to the main game. And I hope that he, or at least the mechanic comes through in the sequel. But Donkey Kong has the ability to pick up any mobile object or any destructible or mobile object. The only exceptions are indestructible blocks and bosses.
Mm-hmm.
But you can pick up your own teammates, you can pick up enemies, you can pick up destructible blocks, you can pick up exploding blocks, you can pick up anything in the map, and then carry it around with you, and then throw it, and then, depending on what you're throwing, it'll either hurt an enemy or position another character. So you can do this crazy stuff where you have one of your teammates on a different part of the map, Donkey Kong picks up another teammate, throws that teammate, who bounces off the other teammate, hits the ground, and then they can move. You can go across the entire battlefield and back if you're clever enough about how you position your characters, right?
Yeah.
And it's super fun to experiment with the best layout to move your guys as far around the map as quickly as possible.
Just to see what you can get away with.
Just to see what you can get away with, right? And they've added these like jump pads that only Donkey Kong can use that makes the mobility even farther, right? And so it's very different than the traditional turn-based strategy game where characters' movement distance is very rigid, right? Now it's a lot more. It's sort of flexible in the same way XCOM. I mean, it's more flexible than XCOM, but it draws from that sort of same XCOM movement style, where it's less specific grid points and more. Here's your range, and you can move around within that space.
Mm-hmm.
But movement is even more of a focus in this game than in XCOM was, and way more than games like, Tactics Ogre or Final Fantasy Tactics or, Disgaea or, any of those other ones where they've got very rigid turn-based stuff. Now Disgaea has some pretty cool stuff with, like, the stacking of characters, right? And I don't know if you've ever played Disgaea, or Disgaea, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. But you can pick up characters, and then you can have another character pick up that stack, and you can create these stacks of characters, and then you can throw them, right? And you can kind of accomplish the same thing where you can really, really navigate a map if your stack is tall enough. But there's a lot of overhead required to get your stack tall enough to throw people all the way across the map, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, Mario versus Donkey Kong, it's the mobility is is baked into the core mechanic. The designers really want you experimenting with clever ways to get around the map and maximize your turn. And it's nice. You have attack, movement, and special ability, and you can use those in any order you want to. Mm-hmm. And that also creates a lot of variety and a lot of cool ways to sort of experiment with how you are utilizing and maximizing the capabilities, or not capabilities, but the opportunities of your turn, right? And so I appreciate the fact that they use the turn-based strategy mechanics, but rather than creating something that was incredibly difficult, they used the mechanics and went in a different direction with it. The emphasis is on a different aspect of the mechanics rather than simply the win-loss condition. I mean, you can still lose, and there are some challenging missions, but by and large, the main focus is more on just the joy of using the mechanics and less on how am I going to survive this battle, which is right up my alley. The joy of game mechanics, that's what gets me excited about video games, right? Not the challenge. It's the play aspect of it is what I like.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and so I wrapped up Mario versus Donkey Kong. I was thinking about getting the new Mario Strikers game. There's
when's that come out?
The 10th, so in 2 weeks. But there's a demo online right now that you can get, and it's like this one of these weird limited time demos where from June 3rd to the 5th you can play online with other people. And I won't be in town for that, so whatever. But I downloaded it anyway because you can go through the training mode to learn how to do the mechanics. And I got to be honest, after doing that, I don't know that I want to get it.
What is it about it?
I just don't know that I want to spend the time to really learn the mechanics.
Okay.
Is
it pretty involved?
Oh, it's really involved. So you can press the A button to shoot. You can hold the A button to charge a shot. If you release the A button exactly the right time, you do a power charge shot. You
Oh,
can pass the ball with either the B button or the Y button. A Y button does a lob pass, a B button does a regular pass. You can
Oh
also charge the
man.
passes up. Then there's dodges and slide tackles, and you can charge those up. And all of them are on different buttons, right? And you can do like
jeez.
aimed passes where you hold the L button and then press the R button, and it's just like, okay, this is too much. Like
Well, this is
when I finally got through the tutorial, I'm like, this is, I don't want to spend the time to learn all of these mechanics, right? It just
yeah.
it's way more complicated than I want to invest in one of these Mario sports games. Um,
Oh man. Yeah, that sounds yeah, it sounds borderline convoluted to me.
yeah,
Maybe I'm too old fashioned with games now, but I'm not a big fan of when you have a button, for example, the A button, and then you have to do certain things with it, and you get three or four different definitions of what you're doing with the A button on one button.
yeah,
Like you're not being binary anymore. Now it's just you're almost going three dimensions deep into a one button press, which is kind of cool reading about it in a paragraph, but doing it in real time and trying to Rolodex that and
yep,
play,
yep.
it's just too much. I'd rather
That
just be binary. It's off and on. This is what you do. Jump or not, you know?
Yep. No, and that's it's that utilizing it in real time is the thing, right? Because you go
Yeah.
through the training and it's like, oh, okay, like we're isolating this one mechanic, I can do it, right? But then when
Yeah.
you try to like pair all of those things together at the same time, I was failing. So the way the tutorial is set up is you learn all the mechanics and then you do like a brief gameplay loop where you actually like have to use those mechanics multiple times within the time limit to succeed. And I failed
Mhm.
a bunch of them just because it was asking me to do too many things and I hadn't fully grokked what the controls were, right? And so
Mhm.
I was failing the tutorials because I couldn't remember how to do certain things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a bad sign, right? Maybe
Yeah, that's yeah.
maybe when I was in my 20s and I was smarter, um, I could and I could memorize that kind of stuff and grok that kind of stuff faster.
Hmm.
But now I'm just too old. I don't really want to remember that the Y button is a lob pass and a B button is a ground pass, right? And
Yeah.
it's just it was just too much information to consume, especially with like Monster Hunter Sunbreak coming out on the 24th.
Hmm.
It's just like those that game is also intensely complicated, but it's a game I've
Hmm.
been playing for a decade, so I don't have to do that massive learning curve. Also, I like hunting monsters more than I like soccer, so just
Yeah.
in general the core loop is more entertaining for me. So I think I'm going to pass on Mario Strikers, just because it's just the intimidation factor. And it's not that I don't think I could get to a point where I'd be, could play the game effectively. I just don't want to, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. 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 I don't. Yeah. It sounds. I lost interest after Strikers on the Wii. Um. I found it too. I just found the AI too hard to play.
Yeah, I
To play
remember that.
against.
Yeah, I agree.
But I liked playing it. It was okay, and there was an addictive quality to it. It's been so long since I played it, though. I can't really put my finger as to what it was, but it was fun for a Mario sports game. I enjoyed it, but not enough to where I was salivating, waiting for the release of this one to come out. Because I remember just how annoyed I was by the time I was finished with the one on the Wii. And how many iterations of Strikers have they made now?
Only the third one.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
And
yeah.
it's Next Level Games. It's the same company. Nintendo actually recently bought them. They purchased Next Level Games after Luigi's Mansion 3 came out.
Okay.
And I actually didn't finish Luigi's Mansion 3.
Uh-huh.
I got pretty far into it, and I got to this one boss, and I'm like, I'm kind of over this. I'm kind of bored, like, and so I just stopped playing, and I
Mm,
never went back to it. But I mean, they're really good with their visuals. The graphics are phenomenal.
mm-hmm.
Um, but it just yeah the mechanics got, and it's the same problem with Luigi's Mansion 3. The mechanics got so convoluted. I couldn't keep track of everything that I was supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of the problem. But yeah, Next Level Games, they did the previous Mario um, Strikers, and they did Luigi's Mansion 2 for the 3DS as well, which I actually really did enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But they just kind of got a little bit too, I don't know, just a little bit too complicated for my taste, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, so I'll probably pass on that one, which is fine because Monster Hunter Sunbreak comes out 2 weeks after it anyway, and I'd stop playing it for that anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
there was,
Yeah, you're too far gone with Monster Hunter. You're there. For
yeah,
Monster
I'm there at this point. I'm just counting down the days till that comes out, and then, you know, that's like a complete game, basically.
Yeah.
And then at the end of July, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 comes out, which is one of my favorite JRPG series. So that's basically it. Between Sunbreak and Xenoblade 3, that's basically the last two game purchases for the year.
Yeah. Uh, Xenoblade 3, like, so is one of the okay, yeah, I've been wanting to ask you about this one. Xenoblade, is there Chronicles and then just Xenoblade, or is it everything just Xenoblade Chronicles? What is it?
It's Xenoblade Chronicles. I just
Okay.
didn't want to say Chronicles, so I was lazy.
Got it. Got it.
It's
Okay.
and it's actually the fourth game in the series.
Okay.
And it's interesting. They actually are connected loosely. So chronologically, in the chronology of the game and the series, the first one is Xenoblade Chronicles X,
Okay.
and that's the story of that game. Loosely, is a spaceship flees Earth, crash lands on this new planet, and they work to colonize the new planet, right?
Okay.
The ending of that game ends with an explosion, like a world-ending explosion. And it turns out that what it's done is it's fractured reality into two dimensions.
Okay.
And one of those dimensions is Xenoblade Chronicles 1, and the other dimension is Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Okay.
Then, at the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 1, the world ends again because it's a JRPG. And at the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 2,
Uh-huh.
you actually, you stop the world from ending. Like, it's been so long, I don't remember the story is so convoluted, I can't keep track of it. I had to go to Wikipedia. But then Xenoblade Chronicles 3 takes place, hundreds of years after the end of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and, what the world looks like as a result of the ending of Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So it's really interesting. They are all connected loosely, narratively, but they are complete stories in their own right. You don't have to play one to understand the other, right?
Okay. All right.
So the connective tissue is pretty loose, but if you're a fan who's played all the games, then you'll get sort of the subtle connections between the different games.
Cool. And if you're saying JRPG, so that means that these games are 80 hours plus, I guess.
Oh yeah,
They're long games. Right?
they're long games. I mean,
Yeah.
all three that have come out, I put over 100 hours into. So.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I mean, I'm trying to follow my rule, which is since Elden Ring, sinking 250 hours plus into that game. I just want to do 20-hour games. So I just got done finishing Bayonetta 1 again for the second time this time, just to kind of get reacquainted with that franchise. And boy, that game is phenomenal. So much fun to play. I mean, just for a pure gamey standpoint, just to play it and the addictive qualities of it, just going through the levels, and you want to go. If you're a completionist, you want to go back again and try to get a better score and stuff. So much fun. So I'm looking forward to going to number 2, but I almost don't want to go to number 2 yet because number 1 has been so much fun to, try to ace on certain levels and unlock new weapons and stuff and try different play styles and stuff. There's so much. It's funny how they designed the game to where you can pretty much beat the game relatively quick and easy, and there's so much content still left to do that at least for me, I felt the first time I beat it, I felt guilty leaving it because I wanted to try the other stuff, all the other items you could try, all the other, combinations you could use with your weapons,
Sure.
So after beating the game, I feel like I've only beat it, technically from a content perspective at 50%, even though it's done. So I don't know how involved you got in with Bayonetta. I know you played 1 and 2, right? And
Yeah, I played 1 and 2. I played both of them multiple times.
yeah.
Because they came out on the Wii U, then they ported them over to the Switch, so I played through them again. I am, um, it's my usual thing, right? Well, I'll play something until I get bored, and
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I'll stick with it until I feel like I've squeezed as much blood out of the rock that I want to squeeze, and then
Yeah.
I'll move on. So I've never 100%ed either Bayonetta or Bayonetta 2,
Hmm.
but I've gotten pretty close. I mean, like I live by the 80% rule in that I can usually get to 80% of anything pretty easily, but then that last 20% I very rarely accomplish. It's a very rare game or very rare anything that I go above 80% on. And part of it is
Yeah.
I'm not good enough to get above 80%, and part of it is I've just got better things to do. And so it just sort of depends.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. For me, again, I'm OCD, so I will play a game to almost to death of it. In most cases, not every single game, but yeah. But there's always a part of me that where my OCD ailments are much like I just have I suffer from a higher than you do. I mean, you're able to separate yourself much quicker than I am
Oh
in
yeah,
certain
no.
certain games.
I have the exact opposite problem. I wouldn't say that I'm
Yeah.
ADHD or anything, but I'm very much like a "What have you done for me lately?" game.
I think it's a healthier way to go. I envy that ability. I just can't. It's hard for me to do in
Yeah.
certain games. Unless I hate the game, unless I get really annoyed with the game, then But it's been a while. The other thing though is I don't know whether this is because of my game testing days at Activision, but I became a video game snob too. If a game's too buggy or too janky or something, or it's just not good, I will hit the eject button quickly, like within the first 10, 15 minutes of playing it. I just won't touch it again. So I
Mm-hmm.
have that,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just rare because I try to be as picky as possible when I decide to sit down and play a game anymore these days.
Yeah.
Especially now, like in today's for gamers, like it's so much stuff to choose from. It's so much content out there. It's crazy. So for sure you'll find something else better at a certain point when you hit the eject button.
Yeah. Exactly. And most games are still, huge commitments of time. So,
Yeah.
and again, we've talked about this. I mean, it's games aren't competing with games; they're competing with everything, right?
Yeah, you were telling me which CEO was had that
Sator-
philosophy or
Satori Wada.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, the former CEO of NCL. Um, and yeah, and he's right, right? I mean, in like I'm just from this podcast, I'm at least an anecdotal example of that, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I get bored with a game. Cool, I'm gonna go watch, an episode of Love, Death, Robots, which I finished season 3. It's really
Hmm.
good, really good.
Yeah.
Still not as good as season 1, but there's some really, really good ones.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it. It's on my list. Yeah, I do want to sit down and watch it. But it's good. So I mean, season two, like we were talking about this offline too, season two was good, but it was not. It didn't live up to one. Season one was so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, there's some stellar stuff in season 2 though. So I mean season 3
Yeah.
though. The second episode was just like it floored me. I loved it, and the last one was visually very arresting.
Hmm.
Um, it was I don't know. I'm curious to get your take on it. Your animator's perspective on it. There was
Hmm.
I'm reluctant to say anything, but it was just really interesting the way it was presented, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. But yeah, there were a lot of really really good episodes in that one.
Hmm. I'll try to get it on my homework to do list, before our next stream next week and see if I can cram it in. So the great thing about Love, Death, and Robots is they're all little bite sized. You can just watch them in one little snippet here and there, and you're good. It's great. I wish there was more anthology type shows like that.
Yeah, I
That we
agree.
could
I
watch.
agree.
I love that. I love short form content like that. Much like Calamity Jane.
Yeah.
We're so yeah. Speaking of Calamity Jane, so I don't. As we've been talking, I came up with 3 different takes on our
Okay.
Wombat-Girl costume.
All right.
So
Okay.
So minor thing, I'll bring this up to you, and maybe one of our 20s of viewers will know this too. But this really annoys me is when I can see an image, I right click, save image as, but then it saves it as a web.p something where I
Yeah,
can't use it. It's
yeah,
annoying. Like,
yeah,
how do
yeah.
we, you know?
It's a
So anyways, I
JPEG.
didn't have that.
It's a
Yeah.
JPEG. So if you open it up, oh, you're using a Mac, but the way I get
Yeah.
around it is you can open it up in Windows Paint and then
Okay,
just
and then save
resave
it.
it as a JPEG.
And
Yeah.
I thought that was I was gonna go that route. I was like, I'm not gonna bother waiting for Photoshop to open or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know where this
Like,
WebP file format came
it's
from,
so annoying. It's so
but
annoying.
yeah, I can't remember if it's a
But,
JPEG or PNG, but it's one of those two.
but regardless, I mean, the image itself is pretty riveting. I mean, it'll be the stuff of nightmares for
Oh yeah, no, I'm
for
definitely
many
gonna.
for this rest. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
but it was definitely in my head a little bit. But I did want to go more cute. So here's what we ended up with as far
Okay.
as cute's concerned. But yeah, so I have one where we've got the kind of a hoodie, overhead type of a headdress type of thing, and
Yeah.
then tied on furry leggings and stockings for her
Mhm.
is one. Our next one is more of a onesie
Mhm.
that she runs around in, and then also this was kind of a combination of the first one with tied on, but with the kind of a robe type of cape that folds in, and with suspenders that will kind of keep her pants up, but then she'll
Mhm.
still have her hoodie underneath. So yeah, that's kind of what I ended up with so far.
Of these initial three sketches, this is my favorite.
You like this one, huh?
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
Which one? What makes you? What do you like about this one?
Well, the onesie one, it just looks like a nightie, or not a nightie, but it looks like sleepwear. It looks like something you would sleep in, and then you just put on one of those silly horse masks, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The boot one is okay, but it just feels like it's too much negative space. There needs to be something
Yeah,
more in the body area.
it's too sparse, right?
Right, exactly. And so
Yeah.
that third one kind of, like you said, is sort of a mix of the two.
Hmm.
You know, maybe not the full cape in the background, but also right, like what is Wombat? Is Wombat Girl? I mean, I've not, other than the name, I've not given this any thought.
Yeah, no. Like we still have the lore to talk about with this
Right. I mean,
Wombat
like,
Girl.
does Wombat Girl have a cape? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. So
This is why we're doing the controversial stuff right here in your face, Eric.
in your
This is
face.
your monstrosity now. Now we're faced with trying to come up with a story and a mystique behind Wombat Girl. What makes her so cool to where Calamity wants to dress up as her? Who knows? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
I kind of like the tick angle, right? Where the tick is the suit. He doesn't look anything like a tick. He's just like a giant
Yeah.
guy in a blue suit, and he calls himself the Tick. I mean, in his superpower is he's indestructible, basically. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I like the idea of her being Wombat Girl, and like, we can kind of play with it however we want to, right? Like sort of like Sonic is a hedgehog. Okay, sure, and Knuckles is an echidna. If you say so, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can play with that as well. But in terms of the sort of overall balance of aesthetics, I like this sort of in between, not exactly a bedtime outfit, not exactly like too sparse. So
Yeah.
kind of splitting the
Yeah.
difference here. Cape or no cape, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I mean,
Yeah. Sure.
why? I mean, I think that it would make a wombat cuter if they were forced to wear capes. So I'm not against
Yeah.
a cape necessarily, but yeah, exactly. I said Wombat Girl, and that's as far as I got in the thought process
Yeah,
for
this
that
is as far as
artist hero. Yeah.
Yeah, it is as far as I got in the sketch process because it's so brand new and bizarre to me. I had to just kind of draw some initial stuff. None of this is I would consider final at all. Like there's some other things, at least for me, that I'm looking at that I kind of want to still kind
Yeah.
of capture for Wombat Girl. I do want to get more round with their head, kind of more roundish. Like these head, she's pretty much a giant circle. There are a bunch of
Yeah.
circles here, so I do want to get kind of push that where Calamity's more lean though. But like I want to kind of think about how I want to sort of definitely play with circle pattern a little bit more with their costume.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other discussion that I'd have to do whenever we get to the episode of Wombat Girl costume dilemma.
I mean, the thing
But
that's
we
yeah,
yeah, but we broke ground. We have
did.
broken ground.
Yeah.
You spoke it into sketchality,
Oh God.
sketchality.
Oh God.
Yeah. So.
That's a dangerous place to be. the one thing, and obviously it's very early along, but the one thing that's important to me, just based on all the cosplay that I saw at the con
Uh-huh.
over the weekend, some of them are very professional looking. There was a team of, I think, professional cosplayers who had just these unbelievably well done, complex Monster Hunter weapon and armor sets. I mean, it was crazy. I have a couple of photos. But most everybody's costume was very, very DIY, right? And so that DIY aspect of Wombat-Girl, of Calamity's Wombat-Girl costume,
It needs to feel that way, huh?
Yeah, really, like the claws need to feel like they're cardboard, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I hear you.
So
yeah,
anyway,
well, that's something else to think about. Yeah, I tried to kind of throw that in on one of these, kind of like with this one here. I tried to put drawstrings in, like as if there were shoelaces, So that was something I was kind of thinking about, but again, we're in sketch form. But yeah, we'll definitely kind of do that going forward. We'll try to keep some sort of a feel like it was homemade kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe even a patch over a knee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. So, and honestly, it's the DIY ones that are sometimes they're really like they're more fun, right? The super professional, elaborate ones are impressive to see because of clearly the skill and the craftsmanship.
Yeah.
That goes into producing those, but just seeing people like my niece, for instance, right? I mean, I didn't recognize the character. It was from some webcomic that I wasn't familiar with, but just she put that all together herself, right?
That's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's just sometimes it's really impressive just to see people kludge together something out of just what they have around the house and put together something really, really, really neat as a result of it, right? This character had like record turntables. I don't understand the context for why that they had turntables, and they float, I guess.
Oh, okay.
And cool. Emma fabricated these turntables out of cardboard, constructed them, glued them together, got some elastic string, and made a loop for them that she could put around her finger so she could move her hands, and the turntables would, float around in front of her. I mean,
man.
It was really incredible, right? Like
that's intense.
Yeah,
Jeez.
Yeah, it's really cool. So, that kind of DIY stuff is kind of what I'm thinking about for this costume here.
Yeah. We'll dial it in as we, maybe we'll have to bookmark this episode, and then we'll visit when we get to that episode where Clement has to dress up. We'll revisit these sketches, and even, and by that time it'll be in our heads even longer.
By that point, we'll have an entire lore. We'll be like working on a spin-off series for Wombat-Girl.
Yeah. So, but cool. For next week, I'll probably go back to just animating, as I have been on episode 1, and we'll bring more stuff to the table. Maybe I'll get that Love, Death, and Robots under my belt too.
Yeah, if you get through that, we'll talk about that next week. I'm really curious about your take on the last episode, because it was very visually arresting, and I'm not entirely sure why I felt that way yet. So I'm curious to get your take on it.
And speaking of animation, I know there's a long list both of us have on entertainment consumption, but definitely get it. I mean, if we're talking animation, definitely get Undone season 2.
Yeah, I should definitely.
If you get, I don't know when you'll have time, but yeah, that's must see if you're in animation and stuff, and you're into really interesting psychedelic storytelling. Undone season 1 is awesome, and number 2 is really good too.
Okay, yeah, I loved Undone season 1. So, and it was co-created by Raphael Bob Waxberg, the guy who did BoJack Horseman. So there's definitely some pedigree there. So yeah. But anyway, I guess that's a pretty good stopping point. We've been going for a good 40 minutes here. So yeah, as always, check us out at calamityjane.rocks. It'll take you right to our Patreon site. As we mentioned, we have a Twitter account where Calamity Jane tweets little stories every week, and you can find that at I think it's just Calamity Jane at Calamity Jane. Or no, Jane Salamander at Jane Salamander. Yes. That's what it is. It's at Jane Salamander.
Yeah.
And when you go to the Patreon site, please consider subscribing. The more money we have, the easier it will be to make this show a reality. We've got various tiers that you can take a look at there. Otherwise, have a good evening, everybody. We'll see you next Monday, and stay safe out there. All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.